Hey guys, Thomas the Silly Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation. Since I did not get to review Hotel Transylvania 1 and 2, I just thought before I officially begin my review of this movie, I should just give my quick thoughts on the previous two. I thought they were alright, pretty solid, pretty good messages. Uh, some parts were a little bit, a little bit distracting here and there, but overall, thought that they were pretty good movies. So that brings us to Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation. And right off the bat, my feelings on this is that it does sound more like a movie that would be more directed to DVD or something of that nature, but nonetheless, we start this movie off with a flashback in 1897, where the monsters are hiding on a train trying to get to a location, but they are interrupted by Van Helsing. He does have another first name, but for all intents and purposes, it's just Van Helsing. So that's what I'll refer to him for this movie, and yeah. So, Van Helsing catches the monsters after lighting up a little thing, and then, the Frankenstein monster freaks out, and then, Van Helsing, uh, attempts to catch them and fails. And then it goes to a montage of all the times that Van Helsing particularly tried to focus in on Dracula, but failed time after time, with Dracula being able to turn into other animals. So now it is present time, and his daughter, I kind of forget her name, to be honest. Just call her Jack's daughter for the sake of the review, just to move it along. Uh, once to help with this little wedding that we are seeing. Meanwhile, her daughter, Danny, and Lenny, I think the female dog's name is. I think that's her name. Their entire thing in this is that they are messing around with this dog, and that's their entire. Every time we cut to them, that's what they're doing. So yeah. So we see a little bit of setup in the beginning as Johnny does some DJ music for the wedding afterwards. And Drac is like trying to avoid intermingling with like Frank's, I believe it was like sister or something along those lines. And he was trying to, communicate, and it failed pretty miserably. With his daughter like getting in on him, and then he's like trying to hide all that stuff. So she hears a message on the TV that's a convenient message. It's like, hey, do this thing that's just for this particular person who's watching it, cliche. So she decides that she's gonna go with a cruise. So they end up taking a plane, which we see a weird, bizarre cameo from the Gremlins. Of course, they look different for the sake of the movie, but it is essentially the Gremlins. They're a little bit smaller here, and they're just like messing around and stuff, and it's pretty bad. So again, we have more Dennis checking in on the pet, just to waste a little bit of the runtime. If the kids are entertained by dog hijinks, I guess that's what that's there for. But they manage to make it to the Bermuda Triangle, which they see a large set of boats and then another main cruising boat that they all board. So, Danny and the little Winnie, I'm just gonna call her that because I don't know if that's her name, but whatever, Wolf Girl, they like talk about how their dog isn't able to pass because no pets allowed, which I find absurd since monsters are allowed, but there's a rule against pets. It's kind of weird, but anyways, they make their little pact promise, and then she sneaks in a little kiss on him. Uh, so uh, Jack thinks that everything on this cruise is just like a hotel, so he's kind of like, ugh, like, why am I here sort of deal going on there. And then we get to meet Lady Captain Erica, who I'll just say, spoiler alerts now, is another Hellsing. So, Lady Hellsing. She invites them in, and Jack immediately falls in love at first sight. And there's some more hijinks with some of the other monsters. The wolf parents, for example, drop off their many kids in this little club area, and they're finally free of them for a temporary moment. Meanwhile, Captain Erica goes off into this secret area where she interacts with Van Helsing, who is nothing left but a head and a mechanical body. So, while that's going on, they talk about how they're able to make their plans for this Atlantis place and pick up an artifact that will help them kill the monsters. Meanwhile, Drac is dancing along to some music, and Erica, not listening to her great, I think it's just grandpa's advice about not trying to kill Jack until they get there, so she attempts several times and keeps failing. So, anyways, he checks in with his daughter, who starts to freak out about Erica a little bit here at this point in time. There's like a little bit volleyball game that goes on, and then Erica cuts them off. And we get this odd moment. It was in the trailers where we see them trying to walk in unison with the scuba gear on. And I will say, in general, I think it's a little bit more, it feels a little bit more rushed here in that sense, but whatever. A small detail. Anyways, Erica takes out this giant robo-fish to try to deal with Jack. That also fails, obviously. But then Jack's daughter takes this picture and is able to catch the Erica just managing to escape. So the veil has been sort of, say, lifted. But the friends of Drac overhear her saying how she needs Drac and all this stuff, and they're like totally getting the wrong message from the words that she's saying. But we gotta have more hijinks with Dennis and Winnie as they continue to chase the dog into the secret hideout area, which doesn't really lead to anything. But just Dennis pulling the dog away, it's all about it. So, Jack's daughter she's like trying to convince Jack about all this stuff. And when that doesn't work, she's like, oh, I'm gonna go follow them afterwards or whatever. And Drac has a certain starting confidence, but then when they go in for this little meal, it quickly fades away. And the daughter comes in, trying to place everything clearly and plainly. Meanwhile, the wolf parents have an unfortunate circumstance where they catch Erica afterwards talking with the grandpa, and then they just take him out, and I'm like, why didn't they just do that to Drac earlier? Anyways, they manage to reach Atlantis, and we have this giant kraken appear from the depths to sing for them, and at first it seems like everything's gonna go haywire immediately, but the kraken seems all cool and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the dog is making a further wreck of things. So Drax sees Erica, follows her as she goes to this little area, and following up behind him is his daughter. They reach this point where she surfaces and she almost falls for a trap, in which Drax saves her. She sees that he is unhurt and sees that she can just mosey on her way up as Drax takes all the hits for her, not getting a single scratch on him, even though he's getting hit by everything, which doesn't come into effect later on, but whatever. That kind of ruins what happens at the end even further, but I'll get into that in just a bit. So she gets the little artifact MacGuffin thingamabob, and as they make their way back, Lady Van Helsing, or Erica, has the axe near Drax's head, and the daughter sees this and kind of places the blame on her again. And Erica kind of shifts her tone to like not liking monsters or whatever, just to get Drax away. But we all see the emotional face is all but it's a fake out pretty much. Anyways, the monsters are gathering towards this party, and the dance party is on. While Johnny and Drax's daughter are dancing, Johnny manages to pass on some wisdom to the daughter. So, as that's going on, Lady Van Helsing, Erica, tells the truth as actual Van Helsing appears to make his threats now that he has the MacGuffin thing. And he starts to play this evil music, which turns the Kraken into this possessed Kraken. And the monsters get trapped as the Kraken splits apart the bridge that brought him into this party area. The kids almost get taken, but the dog saves them. Drax gets caught by the Kraken, and with one squish, which I mentioned earlier, is inconsistent with what just happened moments ago. He gets KO'd, essentially. And Erica goes to save him as his body limplessly falls down. The dog is revealed, and everyone who was around the immediate vicinity is somehow shocked that it was the actual dog. Not that the faces of the kids should have given that away earlier, but whatever. So yes, Erica ends up saving Drax, and but even so, Van Helsing keeps up the attack regardless, even if Erica is in the way. So Johnny pulls out his DJ set and starts to play counteractive music in hopes that the Kraken will gain control back. And it does, and it goes back and forth between the two of them. So as they're getting risen up, as the Kraken is possessed once again, Johnny says that he needs to play like the most something music ever. I forget what his exact wording was, but they end up playing a song that is probably one of the worst decisions that I've seen in a long time, which is the Macarena. Definitely does not fit the tone of the movie, definitely does not fit the tone of the ending. It just doesn't fit at all. And I'll talk more about that as I'm wrapping up this review. Nonetheless, all the monsters join in the dance, and as well as the Kraken, and Van Helsing falls down, but Drax manages to save him as well. Winnie, the wolf girl, then after all this is said and done, wants to, quote, zing with Dennis, and he's like trying to run away from her, which I think is a little bit backwards from the second movie, because she was all like saying zing all over the place, and she was even licking his face at the end of the, or near the end of the second movie, and he was totally fine with it then. But in this movie, he suddenly decides to run away from her. I don't know. That seems a little bit backwards for me. Anyway, whatever. So they return back to the hotel, and Drek leads Erica to the roof and instantly proposes, and she does a little bit of a baffle, mumble jumble thing, and then she finally manages to say yes, and that's where Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation ends. And I do think that this movie kind of follows suit with the previous two. It's alright up until the end. I think the end is where this movie definitely falls apart more than the other two have. Uh, I think the ending of the previous two movies are very consistent with the tone of the movies, and this one, it the tone is just, again, they play Macarena, and I don't think that fits at all. Like, there's so many other choices you could have chosen to really set the tone of what this movie is all about. I mean, there are already two thoughts in my head that instantly played in my head, is that you pick a song first and foremost that has something to do with romance or love. That's what the whole movie is about, so it would probably be way more fitting to play an up, catchy love song that everyone dances to very slowly and that also wins over the Kraken. That would have been way more fitting. Or even more, like, if they, I kind of say that the love at first thing is a very Disney-esque thing. If they really wanted to go down that route, then have Dracula sing a custom song to Erica. That would have been, that would have built up the romance so that, again, I do feel like Drac proposing to Erica at the end and her saying yes is very rushed. Um, I do believe that there is some sort of time skip in between when they're on the ship and when they arrive back at the hotel, but it's very unclear if that is even true or not. But nonetheless, it still seems very rushed. And at least if they had, had that little love song near the end, I think it would have helped build up that proposal a little bit better than playing a song that's so irrelevant and so out of place with everything else in the movie. I also think that Dennis and Winnie, their little adventures it's very downplayed. I mean, it does kind of go somewhere, like with the dog helping out with the one little part. But other than that, it's very downplayed, and that's a very shift and change from what the sequel did, which is focus on Dennis, since he was sort of the central focus of that movie. So it's a little bit weird. I mean, I get it does kind of make sense since we do have to focus back on Dracula a lot more here. One thing I will say for the entire trilogy of movies now is that I think immediately after the first movie came out, I think Hotel Transylvania would have been far more suited to a TV series. I think it lends itself way more to a series more than a set of movies. That way, you can have a whole lot of episodes and really focus in on all these various different monsters and have like little things, like little episodes dedicated to each of the monsters. And I think that would have been a far more suitable place for Hotel Transylvania to go, but they have decided to stay on this sort of movie path. And I think it's starting to show that they're really starting to rush these things now, and it really shows at the end of this movie particularly. Because some of the monsters definitely feel like they get way more left behind here. They have all of Jack's friends. I would say out of all of them, the only one that really had anything that I felt was going on that was sort of different was the wolf dad, since he had the whole moment with the kids being separated from them. But the other two, the mummy and Frankenstein, I guess Frankenstein had that small gambling moment, but it isn't Like, it doesn't lead to anything significant happening other than him getting claws. The Mummy has absolutely nothing going on as far as I can remember. And of course, there are various other monsters that sort of have these little bits here and there, but yeah, it definitely struggles. Again, definitely towards the end. I feel like again there are a lot more distractions in this movie more than the other two. Um, from the sort of main plot, and it definitely shows as the pacing of the end definitely feels very rushed and completely just out of place. I'm going to give Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation a 5 out of 10. I feel like it's a halfway decent movie. Definitely kind of, again, the ending kind of ruins most of the movie, but I think there are other elements like the sidetrack of the other stories that just are kind of just filler, honestly. Uh, Definitely more of a filler movie more than the previous two. It does have its messages or its message, and I do think that that is nice. However, its ending execution is what made it fall apart as well. Those are my thoughts on Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation. And if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out that link in the description or head you over to my Patreon page, and any donations are greatly appreciated. And until next time, everyone, bye bye.